Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stories That Inspire Us with Janice. Today is Wednesday, July 20th, and it's hot as heck in the Northeast. I'm just going to get this out of the way. That's why my hair looks so lovely, by the way, just saying. I have on an amazing guest today, and you know, all these stories, I just want to say, I am so blessed and grateful. And today is for me, is the first anniversary of when I found out about my son, who is truly my inspiration behind this amazing podcast, Stories That Inspire Us. So my son, Ryan Scott, well, he's not little anymore. He'll be 35. Thank you for your daily inspiration. I love you to pieces, and I'm so happy that you are doing so well. So let's get this party started. I am so excited to be with this amazing lady today. You know, not only is she a wife and a mom, she is a teacher, a coach, and I got to steal this title, Chief Sanity Officer. Welcome, Lindsay, to the Stories podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. I thought of that. I was like, everybody just needs a little sanity every once in a while, right? Like
that's what we do. We need a Lindsay in our lives to kind of a CSO to keep us in line and
yes.
keep us going. And first, I want to touch upon your very unique ability, and we have so much ground to cover. You have a very unique ability to intuitively listen to help guide your clients through their daily chaos and noise to keep them moving forward. That's pretty profound, Lindsay.
Yeah. And it's funny. It's not even, you get to move forward because we really get to anchor you. I always come back to this idea of anchoring yourself in a belief, in a value, in a story that supports you. Because all of that noise, all of the stuff that happens around us is really just that. It's noise. It sometimes can feel heavy. It can sometimes feel debilitating. It can sometimes feel like it's completely throwing you off course. Mm-hmm. But in the end, we get to anchor ourselves back into something that really supports us and moves us forward. So you get to stay put in what works so you can move forward, if that makes sense. So
it certainly does, because I think what you're saying too is that, you know, we need to acknowledge whatever it is that we're going through in order to have that movement forward. And it's really important to recognize those signs, acknowledge them, and make some sanity out of it all.
Because if we don't let ourselves feel the stuff that feels really crappy, mm-hmm, you're holding yourself back from the stuff that feels really good. I have clients who say, I'm a stuffer. We just stuff it down, we ignore it. Then you're really like, you're muffling all of the good stuff because the good stuff's under there.
And that makes so much sense. Like, think of that for a moment. We're stuffing whatever it is that we're feeling. That becomes a normal behavior, even though we know it's not good for us.
Yeah.
Because it's normal. So I want to kind of digress just a little bit, because your story, all these stories blow me away, including yours. And you were faced with a very traumatic experience with you and your husband.
Yes.
Would you like to share that with us?
Absolutely. That's what we're here for, stories, right? So my husband and I, we got married in 2010. Yes, 2010. We're coming up on our 12th wedding anniversary in August. And he farms for a living. And we got married. We had our first child in 2011, had our second child, our daughter, our son in 2011, daughter in 2014, July of 2014. She just had her 8th birthday. And then in December of 2014, my husband called me on a Monday morning and I was at work. We had done our very quick, just casual goodbyes. Love you. See you later. He calls me about 10 o'clock on a Monday morning, December 1st, and says, you need to come home. I think I just cut my leg off. And it was this very eerie, like, there's so much adrenaline rushing through his body at this point because he cut his leg off. He was cleaning up equipment from the harvest season, and he was in a scenario where he was standing on slick sheet metal at just the right angle with just the right, it was this happenstance thing. It was genuinely an accident, but that changed the trajectory of our lives. So he lost his left leg just below the knee, and our son had just turned 3. Our daughter was 4 months old. I was working full time. And we now are faced with this life-altering scenario of we are now a family with an amputee. So I rushed to the hospital. It's one of those things of it happens so quickly, but yet you remember every minute detail.
Yeah.
Like I still remember what I was wearing, all these things. And when you're in that situation at first, the doctor says, okay, so give him 3 months, he'll heal. And then by then he'll get fitted for a prosthetic and he'll be ready to plant by spring, because we're farmers and we gauge everything by whether is it spring or is it is it fall, is it planting or is it harvest. But that didn't happen. So the day after Christmas, we went back to his surgeon and said we need to clean it up more. It was a traumatic amputation. It wasn't like it was a textbook. It was so pretty, like there was just things working against us. And so he ended up having MRSA.
Oh,
so we went through battling MRSA, and then we got partnered with a fantastic plastic surgeon. So we're here in Ohio. So at Ohio State Medical Center, had a tremendous plastic surgeon who said he wants to do all of these things that will take about 6 months before you can get fitted for a first prosthetic. So we went from, I can handle this for 3 months, I can keep things together for 3 months, to 13 months later, he's getting fitted for his first prosthetic. So we had a first birthday party. Our son started preschool. Like all of this life keeps happening around this traumatic event. And then we get things moving and we're like, okay, so things are back to normal. And then he gets MRSA again. And that's the thing with MRSA, it doesn't really go away. It gets to lay dormant for a little while. So we went through round 2 of MRSA. My husband is also type 1 diabetic. So that hinders healing, or I won't even say hinders it, but it puts an extra layer of complexity into the healing. So let's see, I spent my birthday and Mother's Day of 2016 in the hospital with him, because he'd been in the hospital for 10 days with round 2 of MRSA. So it just felt like there's, our house flooded. Our daughter, we found out, broke her hip somehow. I don't know. I didn't know what was happening. Like all of these things keep happening, and you tell yourself, again, you stuff it all down. You tell yourself, it's no big deal. I got it. I can do this. I have to do this, right? Everyone would say, how do you do this? I'm like, I didn't know I had a choice. And then you get to the point you're like, but I'm tired of not having a choice. I'm tired of not having a say in how this is going to go. I'm tired of saying that I am just at the mercy of all of the things happening around me. So, so that's when I started to get quiet, and I said, I'm going to take the time that I need. I would set the alarm early on a Saturday or a Sunday just so I could have quiet time before the kids would wake up, because that was what I could do. That's what I could have a say in.
And what you had control over for
Yes.
yourself.
Yes. even if it was 20 minutes. I didn't even like coffee that much at the time, but it was like this symbolic thing of, I'm going to, make a cup of coffee. I'm going to sit and, read a devotional, or I'm going to just sit in silence. I have learned that I am such an introvert, and I recharge off of that silence and that like peace, because I really just wanted peace. You just want that peace. And when you're so mixed up in all of that noise and that stuff that's happening, you don't realize that you do have peace in there. It may not be as big as you want it to be right now, but there is opportunity in there for that. So it was really one of those textbook stories that you push yourself to the limit. You don't know what you're doing until you've gone too far, and you go, okay, something has to change. So shortly after I really started kind of refocusing on myself, then our son was diagnosed as type 1 diabetic as well. So we have 2 type 1 diabetics and an amputee, and life keeps going, and it's not always pretty. It doesn't have to be bad, though. And I think that's the biggest shift that has really helped me be able to then come and talk to other people and inspire other people, because it doesn't have to ruin everything. And sometimes people say, well, it ruined my life. It doesn't have to.
True. And the fact that you said you had an opportunity to shift your perspective, going through initially what you went through with your husband, traumatic experience, not only for him, my gosh, but for you as well. And I'm sure your children as well.
Yeah.
Must have been so overwhelming.
And it's overwhelming when you don't let yourself feel the stuff you want to feel. Again, like as the caregiver, as the mom, as the only able-bodied adult in the house, I had tons of support from my mother-in-law, which was a godsend. And at the same time, I told myself I wasn't allowed to be sad, or I wasn't allowed to be frustrated, because, well, my husband has it worse. Like we always are on this measuring stick of, yeah, but it's not as bad as. And we get to throw the measuring stick out, and we get to say, it doesn't matter what other people are going through. All I know is that right now I want to be really pissed off. And you let yourself be pissed off, because you're allowed to be pissed off, or you're allowed to be sad. We get to feel how we want to feel. And you also get to decide when you're done. You also get to say, and now I'm done feeling that, because now I'm ready to take on the world, or I'm ready to fold the laundry, or whatever it needs to be. Whatever that next step is, you get to motivate yourself into doing it by feeling like the suck for just a minute.
And again, I think that's a huge piece to your overall message, because if we don't acknowledge those feelings, if we don't have some sense of, okay, this is like really effed up, I'm just going to say that.
Yeah.
This is really effed up. It sucks, and I don't like it, and I'm pissed as hell.
Yeah.
Your sanity could have taken a nosedive. And maybe
100%. Yeah.
Maybe it did at times, but you saw the opportunity to change your perspective.
Yeah. And it's funny, my daughter at her birthday party recently broke her ankle. And she's in a walking boot right now. But just last night she was frustrated because she's like, I just wish I didn't have this. And I said, that's fair. You're allowed to. And she said, all the bad things that I think are going to happen. And I said, if the bad stuff is going to happen, what do you think would happen if you started thinking about good things? Because if you have the power to make the bad things happen, you have the power to make the good things happen too. And we lose sight of that so much. We do not acknowledge the power that we have in creating what we want. And we think so much that only the bad stuff happens.
Absolutely.
So you shift 5% of that energy into thinking of stuff that's just a little bit, I'm not even talking about like magical fairy stuff. I'm talking about like, I feel better today than I did yesterday. That's it. Start there.
Mm-hmm.
Start anchoring yourself in the belief, I can create good things. I am creating good things. And you just get to see it snowball in the best way possible.
Wow. And from where the date that your husband's accident started, December 1st of 2014. So it's been about 8 years.
Yep.
And you're working full time, taking care of 2 little ones. How do you go from working full time to starting your own business?
Yeah. My husband may still say that I'm crazy. And it was in those moments of quiet, of where I really started listening to the stuff that was coming up to me. It's, it's really that intuition. It's that gut feeling. It's that, like, you start thinking, I'm here to do more than show up. And like, I was in human resources for 13 years. So, I'm here for more impact than to go hire and fire people. What does that look like? And so I just started like, okay, so I heard this voice of go be a coach. I didn't really even know what that meant at the time. But there's this fantastic machine we have called Google. So you just get to start looking, investigating. I consider it to be wondering, be curious. Instead of saying it's a yes or a no, or right or a wrong, I can or I can't, be curious. And so I went down this path of what that would look like. I found a certification program. I held on to that information for probably about a week before I mentioned to my husband, like, hey, this is what I want to go do. And it was one of the most liberating and terrifying conversations I've ever had. So, because my husband farms for a living. Like, he doesn't, it's Greek to him, to think about some of the stuff that I was wanting to really focus on and wanting to grow a business off of. But I knew that my ability to listen to myself then gave me that stronger ability to listen to other people. And I tell people all the time, I don't listen to the words that you say. I listen to the energy. I listen to the story behind the story, because it's not about the story. It's about what you're feeling about the story and what that feeling is causing you to do or not do. And that's where the power lies in working with a coach, working with a mentor, is you get somebody who can really listen to what you're saying and what you're feeling. And not everybody gets to do that, because everybody else gets caught up in their own story. So
Right. And I think the story aspect of it, as we've often chatted about, there is a story behind the story. And it's not necessarily the first story, which I call the symptoms. Sometimes we have symptoms around that. And what a way to walk over the symptoms. Again, they have to be acknowledged and realized in order to go forward. So were you working full time still as your husband was going through all this, and then you got your certification?
yeah, so I was still working when I was going through my certification program. It's funny, people always say like the universe is going to test you. So I started my certification program in April. I signed up in April of 2018. And so then I had to travel for 3 weekends in that next 9 months to Chicago for my in-person modules and things like that. My program was a year long. And so I went in July, October, and January. And one of those weekends fell, I think it was my last weekend, where my mother-in-law was staying with us, had been with us for probably 6 months at the time, because she fell and she broke her knee and she lived alone. She had no one else to stay with her. So she was living with us. My husband had carpal tunnel surgery. So he was down a wrist. And the person who would normally help was living in our playroom and couldn't move. So the universe is testing me, like, are you sure you want to do this? So instead of saying, screw it, I'm not meant to do it, I hired my niece. She's 20 some years old. I said, just come be an able-bodied adult, get kids food, like just make sure that everyone stays alive for 3 days. That's what I need. And so that's what we did. And everyone made it out alive. So
Amen to that.
yeah.
So now you come back from that last trip and you
Yeah.
start setting yourself up for success.
Yeah.
What that was like. That must have been exciting. It must have been very liberating.
It is still liberating, and there's still moments you go, is this really something that's is this really what I'm supposed to do? Right? Like you always ask those questions, like, is this really what I'm supposed to do? And then you get that nod, that wink from the universe that says, yes, keep going. Like, and again, it's not, I stayed within HR for a while, and I was able to apply my skills from my certification into my workplace. And it also gave me confirmation of, I'm not supposed to be here forever.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I wish I could credit who I heard this from the first time, but I like the saying of work with the willing. My job is not to convince you that you can feel better. My job is to guide you because you want to feel better.
I love that.
And again, in human resources, you get a lot of people saying it's everybody else's fault. It's there is a level of responsibility when you say, I'm going to shift. I'm going to make my life look different. It's no longer about what anybody else has to say or what anybody else does. And it's not in the way that says, screw you, I don't care about you. It's just simply, it's not about you. It's about me. And I got to the point where I was working in human resources and people said, like, you just don't care about it anymore. I said, it's not mine to care about anymore. It's not that I don't care. I want everyone to be successful. I want everyone to feel valued, but it's not mine to care about. It's not mine to invest that energy into. I invest energy into me and what makes my impact bigger. That's the point.
And what would you say at this point for you, maybe something that another goal that you want to take? What is that impact? What does that look like for you?
I think it changes every day.
Okay.
Well, and that's the thing, is that I encourage people to look at what's the next right step. You follow the feeling, you follow that trust, like the innate trust in yourself. I've told people before, like the self-awareness, people get really proud of themselves for being self-aware. And I'm like, that's great, but that's step one. You acknowledge it, you accept it. And then there's this third level that I don't think people talk enough about, is that, like, really appreciating it. So when you get into this, like, true self-trust, it's this really this big appreciation for how you are, who you are. And you just get to ride that feeling and say, what's the next right step? So like, there's some days that I see myself being able to talk on stages and like impacting, you know, thousands of people, or writing books, or whatever it looks like. And then there's other days that I'm like, I want to impact people on such an intimate one-on-one level that it like fuels their soul. And so it's just about getting people into that like true self-trust, and really focusing on what makes your world better. When you're focusing on the problem, you're only seeing the problem. If you're focusing on the solution, you know there's a solution. You're focusing on the possibility. That's where things change.
And focusing on the possibilities, what fuels your soul?
Knowing that I get to impact people, knowing that I get to share that message, and that I get to give them the validation that they're allowed to feel whatever they want to feel. And they're allowed to be who they are. Like, they are here on purpose. And I think there's so much stress, and there's so much anxiety, and there's so much, everything in the world, because people are hiding from who they are because they're worried about what they look like to everybody else.
Mm-hmm. That is so true. And I think, over this past year with my son, you've brought up some really great things that I thought about as I was going through his situation. And it really made me focus on, like, I haven't met I thought in that moment of time, that exact moment of time when he had his injury, what I thought I was at the pinnacle when like, everything's great.
Yeah.
And you look at life so differently when a tragic event occurs. And obviously, we know that you would never have wanted that to happen for your husband. Absolutely not.
Yes. Yep.
And the same with me, with my son. But I look back and think of all the blessings and how everyone supported me during that time frame, and how the blessings made me feel, when I say I'm blessed and grateful, like, I wholeheartedly say that with all of my depth and all of my soul. And that's what fuels me to do things in such a different way now. So I have to have gratitude. I'm not saying that, and I want to be very clear about this, and I'm sure you would as well. We are not happy of what your spouse went through, what my son went through. But I have gratitude that I was able to see those blessings, to acknowledge that, and know that I had a higher sense to do something in such a way to honor his journey and his inspiration. And you did the same.
And I love how you express that, because there's never a rule that says you have to like what you're going through.
Oh, it sucked.
Exactly. And because you say it sucked, it doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you ungrateful. What you have acknowledged and have grown to appreciate is, it has highlighted so much about what you can do. It has highlighted so much about what you can bring for others.
Mm-hmm.
And it has highlighted the support that you have around you. We're always going to have opportunities to see that. Sometimes we get so lost in the noise that we're not seeing the little blessings. So you continue, you get bigger and bigger reminders until you go, holy mackerel. I say the universe is going to continue to give you a message, and it gets louder and louder and louder until you pay attention. How that message comes is not up to us. And do we ever have to like how it comes? No.
No, because I was going over the George Washington Bridge when all this transpired. I'm
Yeah.
like, I have too much time on my hands,
Yeah.
the travel part of it, like whatever.
Yeah.
But that just goes to show you that there's no right time for something to happen. And as I chuckled to myself, I'm like, I thought initially, am I crazy starting a third podcast? Okay, yeah, I'm crazy. All right.
You're only crazy if you tell yourself you are. Again, what?
Right. You're so right.
Yeah.
But there was that. I knew that I was meant for more, and I knew that I could definitely pull it off, but I wanted to obviously do it in such a way that not only, like I said, honors my son's journey, but everyone who has been on stories thus far. And you here in this space with me today, that is what it's all about. I would have never met you. So I have to have gratitude for having that spark. I will say to the big guy upstairs, I'm not doing any more podcasts. I'm the host of 3 podcasts, and I have to save time for my clients. So
yes.
No more podcasts.
For now, you have enough on your plate, right? That's
right. Yes, I do. And I obviously love what I do. And, if I wasn't as organized as I was, I could not have pulled this off. So, and I heard my dad saying to me, Janice Regina, truly you're meant to do more.
Yeah. I love that.
And that's where my other business, Truly Your VA, comes from. Truly Your VA. Thank you, Daddy. And just think of those blessings. Think of those. I think of all the amazing people that I've met. And that's the highlight for me, is making those connections to help people share their stories. And this has been, oh my gosh, so amazing. Lindsay, can you tell our viewers and listeners how they can connect with you?
Yeah, so the quickest and easiest way is either going to be email at lindsay@lindsaydunlapcoaching.com, or on social media is my personal profile, Lindsay Jacobs Dunlap on Facebook. I did bite the bullet and start a TikTok the other day, so you might find me there more, but we'll see. But the Facebook page is probably the best right now. But
okay, so that the Facebook page is your personal Facebook page.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. All right. And obviously we'll make sure that all that information gets in the show notes.
Yeah.
Lindsay, if you could, maybe someone who is listening to this right now, somebody who will listen to it or view the video, and you're speaking directly to them, if you had one thing to say, to them that they could say, wow, I didn't think of this situation in that way, to help them, what would that one thing be?
So this quote popped in my head about 10 minutes ago as we were talking, and I feel like it fits perfectly here, is pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. We are all going to have things that hurt. We are all going to have things that we think are unfair. We get to choose how long we sit in that. It's not about not experiencing it. It's about the choice of how long you sit in the pain, how long you sit in that, and what you decide to do going forward.
Wow. Lindsay, your story has a very unique ability to bring out an awareness in others that no matter what tragedy that they go through, and of course we don't want people to suffer and go through tragedies, but we know life happens, and life has happened for you in such a way that I can't even fathom, but you are here today because you've highlighted, you've anchored yourself, and look where you are today. And I just want to let you know that I am truly inspired by your story. I hope you will certainly consider being a guest again on Stories. Would
I'd
love
love
to.
to.
Back. Wonderful. And I just want to say before we sign up, if you have a story to share, if Lindsay's story resonates with you, reach out to her. I know she would love to have a chat with you, and who knows where your anchor may fall. My name is Janice, the host of Stories That Inspire Us. Today, I was inspired by this amazing lady, Lindsay Dunlap. Thank you so much. And remember, if you have a story to share and you want to share it with our audience on Stories That Inspire Us, please go to my website, register as a guest, and somebody needs to hear your story. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. See you soon.